I don't usually talk about this topic here on my channel, but there have been so many questions in the comment sections of my videos about this topic. I'm going to be talking about it here in this video. In this video, we are talking about alien invasion. Two different kinds. Hey everybody, this is Praxis. Now, what do I mean by two different types of alien invasions? Well, one of them is a fictitious alien invasion, and if you've watched my channel for a while, you probably know what I'm going to talk about when I talk about that. And the other is an actual alien invasion. But before we talk about either of those, I just want to show off this thing right back here. I just finished it recently. This is a sanitizing cabinet, which I built to replace my old sanitizing cabinet, which I built during COVID and worked totally well, but it just looked like a big pile of crap. I know what you're thinking when you look at this one. You're thinking, wow, that guy's ready to ride out the next pandemic in style. But you know what? This isn't for the next pandemic. I've never even stopped using this. I've been using this thing straight through COVID. We put all our mail and groceries and things in here, and it seems like it's been working really well. In fact, since COVID started, not only has no one in my family gotten COVID, but we also didn't get any colds, no flus, no runny noses, no sniffles, no nothing. No communicable diseases have impacted anyone in my family for the past 6 cold and flu seasons, which was a huge departure from the way things were before we were doing these basic kind of interventions. So we've been keeping up with this stuff nonstop ever since, and like I said, 100% effective. And how many pharmaceutical companies can promise a 100% effectiveness rate with whatever they're doing? And I'm not sure which aspect, which leg of our stool, is the thing that's really making the big difference. But since they're all pretty convenient, we've just been keeping up with the convenient ones, and it's working out pretty well. So I just want to show that off. I'm really pleased with this handsome new cabinet that I've created. But let's talk about the meat of this episode, which is alien invasions. Now, this is not something that I talk about ever really on my channel outside of like fictitious stuff. And we're going to talk about the fictitious stuff on the second half of this episode. Why don't I talk about alien invasions here? Well, the reason is because outside of what you're already doing, if you're a prepper preparing for, wildfires and floods and winter storms and civil unrest, especially civil unrest and societal upheaval, environmental disasters, food shortages and things like that. Outside of what you're doing for that stuff, I don't really think there's anything special, different, or extra that makes any sense to do based on a concern that there could be an alien invasion. Now, do I mean to convey by that I think doing all those things will insulate you against an alien invasion? You're going to be all set? No, I just mean that there's nothing else that you possibly could do to make your situation any better. If we look through Earth's history, which is the only history that we have, whenever you've had an advanced civilization, technologically, meeting a primitive situation, again, technologically, there's never really, in hindsight, anything that primitive civilization could have done to have stopped that advanced civilization from doing whatever the heck they ended up wanting to do. And the differences in technology that we've seen in a lot of the interactions in Earth's history have not even really been that great. I mean, maybe people were separated by a couple hundred years, at most, maybe leading up to 1,000 years possibly in technological progress. But that kind of difference is not really that great. So you have essentially near peers, but if one has a slight advantage, they are just a deluge that just floods over the primitives. And in the case of an alien invasion, Earth, humans would be the primitives. And if there were an alien invasion, the likelihood that those aliens would be kind of near peers with us with maybe a slight technological advantage is really far-fetched. If you think about the time scales of our universe, the idea that two civilizations would arise at just about the exact same time and be pretty close to each other and being pretty much lockstep, and one gets a little bit ahead of the other, and then that one goes over and visits the primitives. There's a lot of unlikely random chance happening in there. The far more likely scenario with the vast timescales of the universe is that another alien civilization either started an enormous amount of time ago, and they are just so far advanced beyond us, or they haven't occurred yet. And I think it's reasonably certain that there are near peers to us out there, but in the vastness of the universe, the idea that one of those near peers is going to be kind of close to us is kind of far-fetched. It's far more likely that if we interact with an alien race they are going to be way more advanced than us. If they're way behind us, we would never even know that they were there. So really, if we interact with someone else, it's going to be that they are just way, way more advanced than us. There's not really going to be a lick of chance that if they want to do something, we're going to be able to prevent them from doing that. There's been so many Hollywood films about aliens invading Earth, and they always kind of do a ground invasion, and maybe they have like some kind of magical shields that they have around their spaceships or themselves while they're doing this ground invasion. But a ground invasion just doesn't make any sense at all. If you were an alien race and you were able to travel interstellar distances, across the galaxy, and you wanted to wipe out the species of a planet, if you wanted to take them down, there are so many ways you could just do that from space. You don't even have to land on the planet. I mean, on their way here, they could harvest asteroids from between Mars and Jupiter and just pummel the surface of the Earth for decades with asteroids, and they would just kill off all the life on the planet, because there'd be no sun coming in, and they just sit there, bide their time. Maybe a century goes by, and then we're all gone, and then they move in. So the idea that there would be any kind of a fight where humans would have any kind of a chance whatsoever is just really, really far-fetched. If we get approached by some kind of an alien civilization, our only chance to survive is if they don't want to kill us. And that said, there would be a lot of chaos, and the chaos would be coming largely, I would think, from us, people trying to deal with that mentally, psychologically, emotionally. So if you are preparing for civil strife, societal collapse, those types of things, that's really all that makes sense to prepare for, because those are the only types of disaster scenarios that would be unfolding during an alien invasion that you'd have any ability to really deal with anyway. Again, if the aliens want us dead, they're going to kill us anyway. So really all you can do is just prepare for other people's reaction to it. And if you're prepping for all the things that I talk about here on my channel, then you're prepping for that kind of stuff. And all that really does is buy you the time so you can figure out what you want to do. Maybe you want to integrate in with the aliens. That's the only way in Earth's history that primitive groups, primitive groups have been able to, persist, is by integrating into the invading, group's society. That's really the only way that they've ever been able to keep them and their families going. Another option would be to, die in a blaze of glory. And I guess there's an argument for that. If you just think that it's like, well, this is the end of the era of human dominance on this planet, and the only reason I or my family want to be here is if humans are dominant, and if they're not, I don't want to be here. I think it'd be a little bit, there'd be a lot of arrogance for me to say that's a completely ridiculous point of view, but I would argue against planning for that being your point of view, because it's very likely at the last minute you're probably not going to want to die, and you probably will want to persist, so you should make some preparations for being able to do that. And then you can decide at the last minute if you want to, end yourself and not go that route. But those are really the only options that you have, is pretty much, just die or, be integrated in. And the only prepping you can really do is to survive that kind of, transition period where people are kind of freaking out about it. So that's why I don't much talk about it here on my channels, because all the things that I talk about here on my channel are all applicable, and there's nothing really extra that you can do. So that's it on real, actual alien invasion. And of course, the reason people are talking about this is because there's been some odd objects kind of flinging through our solar system that we've noticed lately. One of them seemed like it was accelerating on its way out of the solar system. There have been some various scientific explanations for that don't involve aliens, oftentimes going to well, it's dust. Dust is doing this, which I think is kind of like scientists' shorthand for angels. Like in the past, whenever people couldn't figure something out, they were like, well, it's because of angels. And today, scientists don't want to say that, and I think they oftentimes will just go to, well, it's because of dust. It's like, dust is what's causing it. So, maybe it's dust, maybe it's not. But I think it's likely that there's life out there, and maybe someday we're going to interact with it. And all that you can really do is be prepared for our reaction to it, because there's, you're never going to stem the tide. They would just be so far advanced beyond us that all we can do is just hope that they want to integrate us or leave us alone. Either one of those would be fine by me. Okay, so let's talk about fictitious alien invasions. what I'm talking about with that topic is something that, like I said, if you've watched my channel, you probably can guess. My series that I've been running for a number of years, Practice Prepper Alien Invasion, is an episodic series. I'm going to put links down in the description below to it if you want to check it out if you haven't seen it before. It is by far the most popular thing I've ever done on my channel, and I'm always being asked by people when the third season, which will be the final season, when the third season is going to be released. And that's what I want to address in this video. First off, what I should say is the reason that I made a second season was because the first season was just very popular with people. At the time of this recording, I have about 20,000 plus subscribers to my channel, which is still a pretty small prepping channel in my opinion. But 10,000 of those people, approximately 10,000 of my subscribers, were people that subscribed to my channel after watching one of the first season episodes of Alien Invasion. It was so popular that 10,000 people saw one of those episodes and said, yes, sign me up. I want to make sure that I know about when the second season comes out. So I was pretty optimistic about releasing the second season to see kind of some continued growth in that direction. So I was a little surprised that when I released the trailer and the first episode of the second season of Alien Invasion, while I was expecting, I didn't think it was necessarily going to be 10,000 people, but I was expecting a lot of those people who had subscribed in the past would have been interested in seeing it. The number of people that watched the first episode of the second season of Alien Invasion, or really any of the subsequent episodes, in the first few days, in the first week or so, was about 200 people, which is like the bottom basement number of people that watch really anything on my channel. If I release any random thing, there's always like 300 or 400 people that will watch it. I don't know if they're like rabid Praxis fans or whatever. You know, thank you guys for always showing up. But that's kind of like the basement floor. Nothing I ever release is less than that. So this was, and I think at the time of that I released the second season, the floor was probably around 200 or so. So essentially 0 people from that had subscribed, 0 of the 10,000 people who had subscribed to my channel came back for the second season. I thought that was kind of curious until you really look at this graph here. This graph is the performance of my channel over time, starting all the way at the beginning when I first started, just like everyone else, with like 0 views, and you can see the steady growth. And then a disaster event happened, which we call the COVID pandemic, and my channel's viewership and subscriber base completely tanked. Now, why is that? There's a couple of reasons why that could be. One could be that during the first real societal level emergency of our generation, people lost interest in emergency preparedness. That's one possibility. But you can probably tell just by the way I phrase that I don't think that that's very likely, and I think there's plenty of data to suggest that's not the case. I know I was building this house, this new homestead during COVID, and I bought a small cottage to live in during the construction period. I bought it before COVID and I sold it after COVID. And during COVID, we all know that in fact there was a huge explosion in interest in prepping and preparedness, information channels, homesteading, and that type of thing. In fact, right at the beginning of COVID, my channel's viewership really started to skyrocket. It's not shown on this graph because this graph is just year by year. It doesn't show the months. But in the months leading up to things kind of heating up with COVID, people's interest in prepping and preparedness, and I could see it even on my channel, was just going through the roof. When I ended up selling the cottage that I was living in temporarily while I built this place, because people's interest in country living, homesteading, and all that had exploded so much, the value of that place went from $250,000 to $350,000. I made $100,000 selling the house after people's renewed sense of interest in homesteading, preparedness, and all that had really just exploded the rural property market. So how do you explain this this chart here, where during a emergency event, the interest in an emergency preparedness channel just tanked? Well, the common explanation for this, and I think it's really the most likely, is that YouTube puts pressure down on certain channels at certain times to try to influence their performance in a negative direction. People will call this shadow banning. There's other terms for it, but the essential idea is that YouTube is kind of changing the way they are doing things on the back end, such that people are being funneled away from certain channels. I know from firsthand accounts of people who have been subscribed to my channel that during that time period, on pretty much a weekly basis, I was being told by people they were being unsubscribed from my channel. Some people would say, after months or even like a year in several cases, that they thought that I just stopped releasing videos. Maybe something had happened to me during COVID, and they were so happy to find me. They're excited to catch up on all the stuff that they missed. Some of those people would even be unsubscribed a second time. So between being told by people that YouTube was unsubscribing them against their knowledge and against their will, and these really clear analytics numbers where during an emergency event, the interest and performance of an emergency preparedness channel that was sharing information that, as I mentioned during the beginning of this video, ended up being 100% true and 100% effective. It's kind of hard to rationalize it with any kind of explanation other than the idea that YouTube is just putting their thumb down on certain channels. What's really odd about it, though, is that YouTube seems like they stopped putting their thumb down on my channel after a given amount of time. And you can see on this graph, after a certain amount of time, the performance of my channel starts growing again. As people's interest in prepping and preparedness waned after COVID, the performance of my prepping and preparedness channel started accelerating again, which creates evidence that there are other things at play. And that continued, as you can see on this graph, until another emergency event happened, and that was the perceived emergency of Donald Trump potentially becoming the next president of the United States. Now, in retrospect, I think a lot of people would look back and think, well, that wasn't an emergency event at all. I mean, both the supporters and I think a lot of people who were not as supporters, might look back and not necessarily remember the amount of fear and concern. But if you remember, during that time, people were talking about the idea that Donald Trump was going to get back in, and he was going to have like political killings and revenge assassinations, etc. They were talking about like firing squads, death squads, and all this. I mean, people were talking about it and dealing with it as though it was a real emergency event, of real concern. And it seems like YouTube felt the same way. During that time period, I was talking about the election, not really advocating. I don't think I actually advocated for one way or the other. I had some critiques of both sides. I mostly just kind of made prognostications of where I kind of felt things were going, what I thought was likely. As it turns out, 100% of everything that I was saying back then was accurate. How many people can say that? Again, it seems like every time there's an emergency event, I have a really good track record for kind of seeing where things are going. But that fact notwithstanding, YouTube still crushed my channel. Again, oddly enough, they take their thumb off of it again, and the performance is on its way back up. So you think, well, that's great. Problem solved. There's blue skies ahead. When can we expect Alien Invasion Season 3? Well, it looks an awful lot to me like a pattern in that graph right there. It seems to me whenever there is an actual emergency event in our larger society, YouTube takes that opportunity, at least from my channel, and I don't know if this is the case for other prepping channels, but at least from my channel, whenever there is an emergency event, my emergency preparedness channel just gets stomped down. And I honestly don't think that Donald Trump's election recently is the last quote-unquote emergency event that our society is going to be looking at. And in fact, I think we're coming up very soon on what's going to be an acceleration of the East versus West war that has been heating up over the past several years. And I think it's fairly likely that that is going to, at some point in the not too distant future, be perceived by our wider society as being another quote-unquote emergency event. Actually, I don't need to put quotes around that. I think that will be an emergency event. And during that time, I'm anticipating that my channel will receive the same treatment as it has in the past during other emergency events. So it's my thinking that my channel is headed for another crushing. The Alien Invasion episodes are something that is one of the things that I'm most proud of, both on this channel and honestly in my life. I've worked on films and television, commercials, music videos in the past, but it's the first time that I not only made an episodic series. Actually, no, I did a comedy series with someone in the past, but this is the first time I ever made it completely on my own. I did all the quote unquote writing, I did the acting, performance in it. I'm really proud of how those came out. Each episode I find enjoyable to make, both from the special effects and trying to kind of create a performance around it. I know I'm not the best actor in the world, but I kind of enjoy it. So there's a great amount of satisfaction that I get out of creating those episodes, but they are a crap ton of work. They're an enormous amount of work. Just setting things up, getting the writing together, doing all the special effects for it. They're an amazing amount of work. And I don't know that I can really legitimize putting in that level of work on something that is, in terms of getting compensation for your effort on something. I feel fairly confident it's going to be a repeat of the second season, where I'll make a couple dollars per episode. As it is, my channel makes about like $1 to $2 per day. This is something I do. It's a hobby. It's a way of connecting with people in the world. This isn't something that I do as like a livelihood, though. I need to do other work in order to make money. And insofar as working on this channel takes away from the work that I do to put money on, the table, put food on the table for my family, I have to do a balancing act on that. Doing a video like this takes the amount of time that it takes to record this video and kind of quickly edit it, which is a long time because my videos are kind of long oftentimes. Putting together an alien invasion episode, though, it takes so much time, and with so many other things pulling me, my boy, he needs my time. I need to work here on the house. We're planning for a move abroad because I'm getting ready for events in the world, and I'll be sharing more with you on that. And even my obligation to you to share about things that I'm doing in my life. If I'm working on alien invasion episodes, I'm not going to be able to be devoting the amount of time that I should to my boy. I'm not going to be able to devote the amount of time that I should to keeping you guys informed of things. I'm not going to be able to devote the amount of time it takes to, make money and keep food on the table. There's only so many minutes, hours, and seconds in the day. And at some point you have to, invest that time where it's going to do the most good. And with a channel that I'm looking forward into the future that is very likely going to get stomped down again, I don't see putting in effort on a third season of Alien Invasion right now during this current situation, where the guillotine can come down from YouTube at any moment. I don't think that it is a prudent use of my time. I would love to do it, but I just don't think it makes sense. Now, that said, things may change in the future, and I may do the third season of Alien Invasion. I would really like to finish it. I know exactly how I want to end it. I want to end it in a way that is going to be both unexpected, and when people see it, they're going to be like, you know what? That's how most of these things should end. So I want to present that out there. There is a chance that I might do it as a novelization. I've really enjoyed doing different things, and I enjoyed doing the Alien Invasion series because it was like an episodic series, and I'd never made one of those myself. I recently made a book. I'll put a link down in the description to my book. This is a reference book that's just really, really dense with all sorts of prepping related information without a lot of the fluff. I made the book for myself as like notes, and then I realized other people would like this too. And when I realized that, I made it actually look nice, and I think I did a really nice job of pulling it all together. I'm very, very, very proud of that reference book. I've never written a novel, and I have never created a graphic novel either. I'm thinking about maybe turning the whole Alien Invasion series into kind of like a hybrid novel, graphic novel kind of thing, where it would be a book and it would have the prepping lessons from the series in the book. So it's a story, but it's also kind of a reference book. That's interesting to me because it's different. I feel like I've done 2 episodic seasons of Alien Invasion. I would really love to finish it up, but it's just so much work, and the opportunity cost of the amount of time that it takes to go in there with YouTube constantly. Every time there's an emergency, they kill my emergency preparedness channel. I just don't think that it makes sense to do it at this time. If things change in the future, I may well do that. I would really like to do that. It'd be funny, like the third and final season happens 20 years in the future, and I'm like an old man or whatever. Although I'm sick, I'm not feeling too hot in the end of the second season. So maybe it'll all be legitimized. Like, wow, he looks like he's aged so much because he did. But that's where things stand right now. And I know that's not welcome news to a lot of people that are fans of the show. It's not welcome news to me. I don't like the fact that I work on this channel and build up audience enthusiasm, and then YouTube unsubscribes people, you know, who don't want to be unsubscribed, and doesn't send notifications out to people that have asked to be notified. I mean, that's really, it's really demotivating the way that YouTube deals with some of their creators. I don't think they necessarily do this to everybody, but it's really, really demotivating. And it irks me whenever YouTube, I'm on their mailing list because I post here, and they're always like, do you feel supported? Fill out our survey. I'm like, what's even the point of this? I filled out a couple of them, but I mean, what they're doing is so intentional. It's not like they're going to stop that because someone's like, would you stop unsubscribing people from my channel? It's like, are they going to be like, oh, we thought that you'd find that, we thought that you'd find that supportive, that we're unsubscribing people from your channel. So clearly what they're doing is not being done to try to support creators or people that want to get information online. So it's demotivating, and I'd love it if it was a different way. But as a prepper, as a person who can't speak, as a pragmatist, you got to take things as they are and not as you wish they were. And the way things are, I think that this is the most sensible route forward. So that's it. I hope you found this video not too depressing if you're a fan of the Alien Invasion series. Again, I'm not the kind of person that like just lets things die. It's there, it's on the back burner, and I'd love for the conditions to change so that the situation could be different. And it may be. But at this time, you know, with that guillotine over my head all the time, and with the next emergency event probably just around the corner, I don't think it's the right time for it. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hey YouTube preppers, if you enjoyed this video, here's another that I think you might like. But before you click on it, I wanted to take a moment to thank all the people you see on the right-hand side of your screen. They help to support all the work that I do here over at patreon.com. If you'd like to join them and get your name added to the list, the link's below.